Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to make a test drive of Volkswagen Passat W8, which I own for about a couple of months, and bottom line, I think it's a very bad car. But now let's take everything piece by piece and find out why it's bad and maybe why it's good for somebody. So let's start. So probably I'll start with what is good on that car. So first thing which is good is engine, because it's big engine, powerful engine, nice to drive. Also it's quite economical engine. It consumes a very reasonable amount of fuel. I really doesn't see it like consuming lots of petrol. It takes me around 10 liters per 100 kilometer average, and combined in city and highway, so it's really pretty good number. Also, the fun fact of the car, especially for example if you are somewhere at the red line and start from the red line with some BMW, especially powerful BMW guys getting behind, really surprised. Another thing is that it's having a dual exhaust pipes. It looks really nice for the car. I can say it adds some sort of sports looks and really brings your attention. Another thing is really good that it has a four-wheel drive system for motion. Really helps you in winter. I tested it on winter. Yeah, it's really good to have this system on winter. Speaking of brakes are incredibly strong as well. These are very big brakes, so you have no issues of braking. And the seats are basically just incredibly comfortable. I'm surprised it's very comfortable to sit in those seats. And that's basically it. That's it what makes this car good. And now it's time to speak about what's bad. Speaking about the bad things on the car, so first thing which comes on the queue is the engine. Despite it's a powerful engine, it's actually very bad engine. This engine is constructed to be very small, to fit in this very small compartment, and to work on this engine is a nightmare. For example, look at the size of it, how short it is. It's like a square, the same size of the length from both sides. And what is a major issue for this engine is that, for example, to change the timing chains which are in the back of the engine, you must remove the engine. It's no way you can do it with the engine inside. It's a huge work. To change, for example, O2 sensors, which are located down here, if you can even see them, you have either remove the engine as well, either to get specific tools to get inside. To change spark plugs as well. These are hidden right here below the intake manifold. You have to remove this portion of intake manifold, which, needless to say, it might increase the amount of money you have to spend on replacing spark plugs, because you might also need to replace this gasket of the intake manifold. The auxiliary belt as well, it's no way you can change it like that. You need to remove whole front portion of the car, the bumper, headlamps, all this must be removed so you can have a clean way to get into the auxiliary belt, as well as water pump. And in here, down here, there is another toothed belt, which is for a harmonic balancers, which needs to be replaced every 150,000 kilometers. So it's basically very difficult engine to maintain. And when you're going to buy such car, you must check the timing chain condition. Like I did in my previous videos, you need to check timing chain condition. If timing chain condition is bad, you must go away from such car, because it will be nightmare for you. Car is very old, the price of car is not big, but maintenance price will be just higher than your car itself in that case. One more specific issue on that car is that it has water-cooled alternator located somewhere down here. You can't even see it. And if that alternator fails, for example for a car which has done lots of miles already, you will have to replace it with a brand new, which would cost you around 600-700 euros, the alternator itself. I'm not talking about work, because you have to disassemble whole front, grille, radiator, bumper, everything, and that would cost you a fortune to do it. One more thing to mention is that this is a very specific engine, very specific car, and you cannot find any repair manuals online like for other Passats, and you have to buy the Bentley manual, which costs around 125 euros or dollars, price basically the same, which is again very pricey repair manual, especially if you're a guy who likes to repair cars by himself like I do. So you have to love this car or hate this car. There's no other way. If you love it, so you definitely can buy it. If you hate it, stay away from it and avoid getting into its side. It's time to speak about the gearbox. It's a 5-speed ZF automatic gearbox, and it's a very strange gearbox. When you're driving in D gear, so basically this gearbox is acting with lots of reserve. The computer of the gearbox connected to the computer of the engine, it doesn't give you the full power of the engine. This car is really slow when you're driving in the D selection. So basically, if you want to have some fun, you need to move into manual position. And why it was done like that? It's because this gearbox is not designed to withstand such forces for a long time. So if you are driving this car every day on a D, so that's okay. But if you are driving this car every day, switching gears manually and trying to get the best out of it, this gear will not last long. Gearbox will not last long. And it's indeed, you can feel the let's say, the way how much more power it has when you turn these gears manually. It really goes way better than on automatic mode. But yeah, it's still not as good as it could be for other cars. And look, it has a 4Motion system, which means this car is 4-wheel drive, and it has a famous Audi Quattro system with a torsion in the middle. The problem is that the primary drive is a front-wheel drive, so on normal conditions the torsion splits torque 100% to the front and 0 to the rear, and only when that front starts to slip, then torsion locks up and it splits everything in half, 50-50 to front and rear wheels. In theory that sounds quite good, but in reality this system gives you a lot of understeer. You have to understeer a lot before your rear starts to spin and compensates that. On the newer Audi, there's a newer version of that torsion, and the primary drive is rear, which means your car oversteers and the front engages to help you. And in this situation, your car understeers. You are already in the bad situation when you understeer, and only then your car tries to help you by engaging the front. So it just makes things even worse from the handling perspective. So as a car enthusiast, I really do not appreciate the system. This old Quattro system is just very bad. I don't like it at all. Now let's talk about suspension. It's not enough that suspension is complicated and quite fragile and difficult to work on. It's also like sportish, sport style suspension, quite stiff dampers and shocks. And you can see those tires, low profile. 17-inch low profile tires, and all this together makes the ride of this car very stiff, very unpleasant. Basically, when it's all in combination, those seats are very comfortable to sit in, but the suspension is very hard and stiff to withstand the high speeds on the German autobahns. And having all those in mind, this car is really unpleasant to drive if you have some bumps. The front brakes is a separate topic for this car. These are, in my situation, these are so-called Formula 1 brakes, which are branded like Formula 1 brakes, which are very big brakes. The diameter of the brake disc is 334 millimeters, and these brakes are designed to withstand very strong braking from the speeds of 250 kilometers per hour to 100 kilometers per hour in Germany in autobahns. So in such cases it makes sense, but for rest of the world where we're living, such brakes are really unnecessary to have. And further more to say, these brake rotors are directional. You cannot change them by sides. It must be left or right, because these are specific cooling created for those brakes, and you cannot change this in different sides. So that's why such brakes are so unique, and because this car is also unique, not much of such cars have been produced. So not many companies produce such brakes, and you must buy originals, which costs around 200 plus euros or 200 plus dollars just one brake rotor. So for both it will be almost $500, which is incredibly expensive for the car like this. Now let's talk about the size of the boot. I was buying this car with intention to carry some large stuff on it, and I thought, okay, it's gonna be Passat W8, which will be powerful, fun to drive, and also practical. But in reality, boot is not so big. Okay, if we, for example, lean those backrests forward, we have some space, but it's not much. Total length is about 165 actually. Well, because of the if you are getting something bigger, so actually 160 centimeters to get in. So not that much to get inside the car. So boot is actually not very big. And if I'm going to measure it from side to side, it's only 1 meter. So that's really not a lot. So basically boot is really bad, and like for a small family to handle a couple of bags, that's okay, but not for a, let's say, family man who tries to carry on some stuff while working on his house or somewhere else. It's definitely not the car to go. Now let's talk about climate control. Normally on the Passats, this section is located here, which is quite okay. But in here, because you have that navigation system, that large display, it must be fit somewhere. So it's on the bottom. It's very bad location. It's very uncomfortable to let's say press any button. For example, I'm sitting in my normal position. You can see I cannot reach by hand. I must lean forward. That is bad. Another thing, because it's on the bottom, I need constantly to move my eyes from the road to this climate control, and that's actually a safety issue. Because if it's here, that's okay. I can change something, but I still see the road on my peripheral view. But in here, I definitely don't see the road, because my peripheral view would be seeing this. panel. That's it, not the road anymore. And it's very uncomfortable to use it. So basically, again, another major issue for this car, which is just a disaster. One more thing. Look, for example, this is my face, somewhere here. I'm driving the car. I want to switch rear window heater. It is located somewhere here, right? Yeah, you can see the button here. And if I'm driving, I press it, and I cannot see the light. For example, I might get forgotten about it, and it might be turned on for the remaining of my journey, and nobody would see it unless I will tilt my head and see, oh, it's turned on, I need to turn it off. Major flaw in the ergonomics and design. The rest is okay. The rest of ergonomics okay. The seats, as I said, are good. Handles are in the position. This all is okay. Okay, the instrument cluster. It's a separate topic. Probably the worst instrument cluster I've ever seen in the car. For example, as you can see, those small dial numbers, yeah, very small, and it's okay to look at them on cloudy day, but on sunny day it's very difficult to see, especially if you are sunglasses. It's almost impossible to see. For example, yesterday when I was driving with that car, the sun was shining towards me. I was driving directly into the sun, and I was completely unable to see anything on that cluster, especially on speedometer. It is just a disaster. And if you're driving this car at night, for example, you can see the blue color for the lights, yeah, and the needles are red. So that contrast is terrible. It makes your eyes tired very fast during at night. Okay, you need to drive, for example, for 30 minutes at night. That's not very bad. But if I would like to go to somewhere where you need to drive, for example, a couple of hours, 3 hours at night, it will be a disaster. I just hate this instrument cluster. Worst instrument cluster I ever had. I'm not sure who designed it, but it was really stupid for Volkswagen to approve it. Alright, now we know that this car is pretty expensive to maintain, but that shouldn't be a problem for some of us who are petrol heads and can afford to maintain such cars like Passat W8, and of course can do some of the repairs by themselves. So, okay, so we understood that this car is expensive to maintain. It's expensive to buy some parts. How about the ride, the joy of riding it? Some even say this is a luxurious car. For me, for example, it doesn't look luxurious at all. It doesn't have anything what should be luxurious. For example, I had a BMW Series 5 of 1991, and it has even more stuff which could be considered as luxurious. So basically, I don't see anything luxurious in this car. It's very similar to standard Passat. The only thing that differs is that this is sat-nav system and probably a 4Motion system. And what you cannot find in any standard Passat is that you cannot find this one. This is a chrome trim all around. And that's basically it, what defines it as luxurious. And as you can see, the sun has started to shine at the back of the car, and we can barely see anything. If I, let's say, turn my lights on, nothing has changed in the dashboard. So again, this is one of the drawbacks of this car. The needle is very indistinctive, difficult to see when the sun shines. That instrument cluster is also difficult to see. Nonetheless, let's say we have this car, and maybe we can say, okay, it's a W8, it should sound very nice and should be very smooth car to drive. Okay, this car is now idling. Do you hear anything? What about if I press on throttle? Did you hear anything? What about now? What did you hear? Actually just a noise, nothing else. No nice rumbling, nothing. It's just a noise. It's very disappointing for me as a car enthusiast that this engine doesn't produce any sound. I've seen on internet that some people are trying to install like a Flowmaster mufflers, but it still doesn't have the tremble. It's still like sounds more like a noise with some rumble, but not much of a joy. Okay, so what? Maybe this car intended to be like a quiet car to be driven every day. What about the infotainment system? Let's see. What does it have? Okay, it's on. Basically, it's very bad system actually. You cannot hear that on this record, but it has very bad low band. It has terrible high band. Basically, it's a rubbish. It's a rubbish. You can just take all this piece of shit and throw it away. It's complete rubbish. It doesn't give any good sound quality. And I appreciate it has such a feature like after you reach the speed of 60 kilometers per hour, it increases the volume. After you reach 110 kilometers per hour, it increases the volume even more. But that doesn't count as good infotainment system. If you just increase the volume but the sound quality is still terrible, it's still a rubbish. I really can say it's a rubbish. Very disappointing. What else? So what can be fun about this car? Is there anything which we can say this car is worth to buy? Well, unfortunately not. This car is very boring and very disappointing and very inspiring. For example, this weekend I borrowed this car to my dad, who owns a Passat W8 basically on the same chassis, but only diesel, 1.9 diesel. And he drove this car for about 1 hour, for about 100 kilometers. And when he came back, he said, "Wow, how did you buy such a bad car? It's such a bad car. His 1.5 diesel is better than this one. It's actually rubbish." And I say, "Well, you were lucky enough to test this car for 100 kilometers. I tested this car for about 5 kilometers and said, okay, maybe it's quite good car, but when I drove it for around 600 kilometers, I realized that this is a rubbish. This car is just a rubbish. It's no wonder why only 11,000 of those were sold, because nobody bought them. If you had enough money, so you instead have bought BMW 540 series or a Audi S6, which has a 4.2 proper V8 engine, and this one just rubbish. And I'm telling this not because this car is not maintained. No, the engine is in pretty good condition. The suspension is good. The interior, as you can see, it's really in good condition. The seats are in good condition. The steering wheel is in good condition. It has no issues with the car itself. It's just how it was built. It was built terrible, and the engine is terrible. It's very disappointing. And as I said, my expectations were high towards this car. I was thinking, wow, it must be a nice car to drive. It has V8 power plant. Well, it is. It does have a V8, but that V8 is designed more like a 2 inline 4 engines combined. So when you press the throttle, you hear the noise the same as like 2 inline engines would be revving next to each other. And another thing is that stroke and bore ratio is way more than 1, so it means this is a stroker engine, and it runs quite good up to 4,000 RPM. At about 5,000 RPM it tends to lose its power, it loses like a sharpness, and at around 6 it's just complete turn down. Now it's not revving. This engine is not revving. It has lots of vibrations. It's designed like a tractor engine, diesel engine, so it brings no joy to drive. From my driver experience, and I drove a lot of cars. For example, here in the front of me is an old Opel Omega with 2-liter engine, which is just a terrible engine for this car. And this car is way fun to drive than this 4-liter Passat, which is just a terrible car. So that's probably it. That concludes my review of this car. When I say that this is a disappointing car, I mean it. If you wanna buy it, okay, it's your decision to buy it. This car deserves a right to be in this world, despite how bad it is. And I certainly do not recommend this to anybody who likes cars and who wants to be different. This car is for somebody who is at his, let's say, 16th, maybe 17th already, because you can actually die from boredom driving this car. And that concludes the review of this car. And I am really happy to announce that by the time this video came out, I have sold this car, and I don't need to cope with that boredom anymore. And now I'm looking for another car which would give me joy to drive. That's it, guys. Stay tuned. Bye.